Hi folks, now you might be surprised by this video because it's not the normal type of video that I would do. This isn't about the police. This is more about a interview that I saw this morning regarding or with GMB, Good Morning Britain, with Muslim MP Zarah Sultana. This is not about me picking on one side or the other of this current argument that's going on. This is about me picking apart her narrative in this interview. I have a few clips that I've intermingled into this as I sort of break it down a little bit, just to point out the discrepancies in what she's saying and the narrative that she's trying to push. But I want to make it clear again, this is not about me sticking up for one side or the other. This is my critique of Zarah Sultana, MP, in her interview with GMB.
Zarah Sultana, I mean, it's shocking, isn't it? Frightening to see these scenes. I don't know, have you seen these kind of incidents in Coventry over the weekend?
Well, I've been talking to my dad, who reminded me that when he was growing up in the 70s and 80s, this is the racist, far-right, fascist violence that they had to deal with growing up, and now we are seeing violence descend upon towns and cities across the country. And we need to call this racist and we need to call it Islamophobic, because if we don't, we fail to really address what's going on. And language is really important. I noticed that the Daily Telegraph were calling it a counter-protest by Muslims. No, you have one side that is burning down citizens' advice bureaus, libraries, targeting mosques, attacking black and brown people who are walking in their communities, targeting women who are wearing the hijab, and you have others who are defending their communities and standing up when they are finding no other help. So we really need to be quite clear about what's going on. And I have to say that it shouldn't be a surprise that this has happened. There is decades of work by the right-wing press and by politicians.
All right, now let's just be really fair here. The behaviour by the white British people over the last few days has been abhorrent. Okay, can't deny that. I said it when I was at the protest the other day. The behaviour was bang out of order. People weren't necessarily there to protest. I didn't see any banners. Didn't really hear any chanting. It was a lot of destruction, as there has been around the country. But not all of these gatherings are like that. There have been gatherings that have been a lot more peaceful. Not completely peaceful, but a lot more peaceful. But we are also seeing a rise recently in the Muslim Defence League, who are openly waving their knives, daggers, swords, machetes around in the streets and not being dealt with through fear of being called Islamophobic, no doubt. Personally, I don't like using the word discrimination. I prefer to use the word discrimination rather than labelling. See, lots of people talk about they don't want to be labelled whilst labelling themselves and everybody else, which is what you're going to hear in this interview. But the Muslim Defence League, whether they are all those clips I've just shown you, or the few clips of the defenders, whether they are all Muslim Defence League, I don't know. Couldn't tell you. I don't have the resources to find that out. But some of them are. I know that. And they are wandering around with knives in huge groups of people, which could potentially lead to people being seriously hurt or killed. But it's not about them, because they're defenders. You know, the white British people aren't trying to defend their country, maybe misinterpreting how defending their country is supposed to be. But I think a lot of people feel that they are defending their country in a way, but they are classed as attackers. Whereas the Muslim Defence League, who are Muslim people, are still a minority in this country. Although they are growing, they are still a minority in this country, and they are allowed to defend themselves and their communities with weapons. And we'll get to that in a minute, because it's quite frightening to see how the police are actually dealing with groups of Muslims who have weapons. And I'll show you that clip in a short while. But let's get back on with the interview, so you don't sit here listening to me rabbiting on too much. But I do have to interject now and again, otherwise this isn't classed as critique and it's not classed as fair use.
But what I would say is that media outlets and journalists, as well as politicians, we had a former Home Secretary who referred to refugees as an invasion. We've had Nigel Farage, also on GB News, saying that British Muslims don't have the same values, don't share British values.
Now, she's kind of got a point there. She says that people, Nigel Farage in particular, she uses as an example, who says that Muslims are not integrated, they're not wanting to become part of society, of the country that they have moved to for allegedly a better life, you know, work opportunities, you know, to get away from persecution in their own country, to protect their lives. They're coming to a country that they are taken advantage of, apparently, wanting to change, apparently. This is what Nigel Farage and some others say quite openly. Zarah Sultana, MP, doesn't think that that's true. So that would make this next woman a far-right racist bigot.
Politicians doing everything is doing. I think there is a big responsibility of the Muslim community in that, because we have tried to change the British. It is totally different now. It's nothing like Britain before. You know, it's everybody's like doing their own thing and they want to adapt everything. So this country's own culture has disappeared.
Racist.
You know, and I think this is something that needs to come back if we want to be, feeling the important. Because, you know, if the British society changed to other countries' rules and religious expectation and everything, then you cannot expect the Britain politicians to be British to you.
Islamophobic.
Yeah. So this is interesting. So you think Britain has been too accommodating almost?
Yes, it is. And I think this multicultural everything coming into it has made it like the society has changed to everybody's adaptations. Like everybody's doing their own thing, schools and everything, they're like having different kind of holidays, everybody's having different kind of their own adaptations. And I think if you go to Tower Hamlets Council and you want to speak to someone about before I would go to council and I would see that they would expect it and they understand me, but now they will be like, oh, in your culture it happens, so adapt to it.
Bigot.
I would say that, the economic system, which has allowed inequality to exacerbate in this country, has brought down living standards. Our communities have faced the brunt of Tory austerity. And what has happened on the right-wing side of politics, in the media and in politics, is that migrants, Muslims and trans people have been blamed for people not being able to access council housing, not being able to get NHS appointments, not being able to find school places for their kids.
Got to be honest, I've never have I heard of trans people being blamed for the lack of housing. I mean, where she gets this from, I mean, it's literally she's pulling stuff out of the air, words out of the air and stringing them together and hoping it makes a sentence that makes sense. It doesn't.
That is the role of the media, and that is the role of politicians.
Keir Starmer, Yvette Cooper and Rishi Sunak over the weekend have all said that...
have they called it Islamophobic and racist?
Why is that language important?
These aren't trivial matters.
They've called it racist. Have they called it racist?
These are not trivial matters. We have to...
No, I know. No, I'm sorry. We do have to ask you questions as well.
Absolutely.
So
and if you want to, you can answer them.
It's your call. I'm going to wait for Kate to finish her question, if that's...
If you want to answer the questions, you can, but you don't have to.
So why is it important to you to use that specific word, Islamophobic? It's been called racist, it's been called thuggery. I think that's important because we are speaking to the Home Secretary and other politicians this morning. Why does that matter to you to use the word Islamophobic?
The reason Islamophobic is important to use for Muslims is the same reason homophobic is important to use for gay and lesbian people. transphobic is important to use for trans people. The reason that they use it is because it makes them feel a little bit special. It makes them feel like the word discrimination covers everything, right? Nobody should be discriminated against, okay? Black, white, Muslim, Sikh, Jewish, Jehovah's Witness, gays, lesbians, trans people, white people. Nobody should be discriminated against in any form. It does happen, granted, but nobody should really be discriminated against in any form. But discrimination covers all of that. That's why we have the Equality Act for discrimination, or why we had the Equality Act for discrimination. But even the law has changed, even legislation, policy has changed now. So it's not about discrimination anymore, because the word has kind of lost its meaning. The same as when the police say sorry. It means fuck all these days, but it's the same, exactly the same scenario. It's lost its meaning. So because it's lost its meaning and people want to feel like, oh, look at me, they are now using these other words. I mean, what about Britanniaphobic, honkyphobic, Christianophobic? You know, what about these things? Because people are afraid of white people, an irrational fear of white people. They have an irrational fear of Christianity. They have an irrational fear of British people. Okay, so why can't we use those words, but all of them can use these little buzzwords for themselves? It's because it makes good hashtags and it makes them feel special. That's why she feels it's so important to use the term Islamophobic, and why trans people feel it's so important for them to use the word transphobic rather than simply using the word discrimination.
And also your article in The Guardian where you said the problem with Labour is that they have accepted too many Eastern European migrants. We have to look at all of this historically over at least 2-3 decades when we look at the role.
I was totally right in that article.
But we have taken in too many Eastern European migrants. The same as we've taken in too many Middle Eastern migrants. Same as we're taking in too many migrants of any kind. And why is she bringing up Eastern European anyway? I mean, Eastern European isn't Islam. It's not a Muslim area. The main religions in Eastern Europe are, and excuse me because I have to look at what I've written down here, Orthodox Christianity and Roman Catholicism. That's not Islam. They're not Muslims. There may be some Muslims there that follow Islam, but that's not the main religion. And we're not talking about Christianity and Catholicism and what it teaches them to do. We're talking about, or the subject is at the moment, about Islam and what the teachings in Islam are and how extremist Islamists, not all, make that very clear, not all Muslims are extremist Islamists. Some are cultural Muslims. But we're talking about the extreme element of that religion. Why are you trying to bring in other areas of the world and other cultures and other religions into this? Simply shows me that you don't really know what you're talking about in the context of what this conversation is about. And I'd be very concerned if you were my MP.
So the discussion around immigration, you don't see that playing a role in what we're seeing descend across the country? You don't think there's any complicity in that at all?
I think if you fail to control and manage immigration properly, then things go wrong. But you believe in controlling and managing it.
The language that they're using are stop the boats. They are telling people like me to go home. If we look at the language used by politicians and the language used by these people in these streets, you will see a direct correlation.
But you've moved from attacking Andrew to attacking me. So let me have a go.
That Kate asked me about language, okay.
What you can't do is just spray out attacks on all of us and then not have any comeback. Yeah. You didn't answer Andrew's question.
No, she didn't.
You attacked me. I wrote an article in which I said it was important to control and manage migration. You agree with that?
What I'm saying is, when we're talking about migration...
I'm asking you a question. You've got to answer it.
I am answering it.
Do you agree in controlling and managing migration?
I think we need to talk about migration in a way that humanises people who have to migrate. And the levels of the debate, the levels it has stooped, has meant that people are setting fire to hotels that are housing asylum seekers.
But do you agree in controlling and managing it?
And I think we need to really be
I'm
careful
just-
about the language we use. And
I'm
just going back to
asking you-
Kate's question,
I'm asking you a
naming
really simple question. Do you think it's important for governments to control and manage migration?
I think having an immigration policy which is fair, which recognises that we need migration to staff our NHS, to staff our social care crisis with an ageing population, I think we need to have really responsible language. And just answering Kate's question...
I don't know.
Can I answer Kate's question?
Well, you can do, but you haven't answered any questions so far.
Okay, so Kate's question about naming it...
But I'm just kind of, asking you, do you think it's important to control and manage immigration?
I think it's really important to reassure communities that are most affected
Of course.
by the violence that we're seeing. And I have to ask, why is there such controversy around calling it Islamophobic when we know Muslim communities are being targeted? We know the language that is being used. Why is it so hard to use that word? That is my question. I struggle to understand what is going on there.
I don't really understand.
And they're horrific scenes.
Asked several times whether she believes that governments should monitor and restrict immigration, and she failed to respond with an answer every single time. Now, I know that's what MPs do, but this is an important topic. I don't think she does think that monitoring immigration should be allowed, because I'm pretty sure that she's more than happy for the UK to be overrun with immigrants, because okay, we are quite a long way from it at the moment, but it's happening slowly. We, the people that live here, the people that have paid taxes all their lives, the people that have worked all their lives, the people that rely on the government for support, are suffering. Because so many more people are coming here and rinsing the system. I mean, there are lots of people that come to the UK and they're getting jobs and they're contributing. My mum and dad's next door neighbours are Muslims, and they are fucking lovely people, like genuinely lovely people. They come in, they knock on my mum and dad's door to check if they're okay. I've had conversations with them on the driveway. They are lovely people. One of them's a doctor, works in a hospital, who actually, the woman actually was my mum's consultant, right? And I'm not entirely sure what the dad does, but they've contributed to society. They are contributing to society. Great. No problem with that whatsoever. Okay. I know they go to mosque. But even my mum and dad have told me that at Christmas, they'll knock on the door and they'll say, Merry Christmas. They don't believe in Christmas, or they don't celebrate Christmas, but they knock on my mum and dad's door and say, Merry Christmas. Simply because my mum and dad celebrate it and they want to be part of the community. They all want to be part of the community in my mum and dad's road. So there are people out there that genuinely are decent people. But we have a lot of people that are coming over here solely to rinse the system, and that is what's causing a major issue. And I'm not just talking about Muslims and Islam here, I'm talking about all migrants that are coming over illegally. They're coming here because they know that once they get here they will be given benefits, somewhere to live, everything they need, and we are the ones suffering the cost of it.
The people who are not integrating, by the way, are not the immigrants. They're the far right. There are people wearing Nazi swastikas blazoned on their skins, doing Nazi salutes. These are the people who are not integrating into our society.
There are people wearing Nazi stickers or Nazi sign swastika blazoned on their body and doing Nazi salutes. People. I've seen one person so far that has been, and maybe I've missed some, but I've seen one person so far who had a Nazi swastika on their back as a tattoo. There are going to be people like that out there. That type of person is now few and far between. But yet people like him and other mainstream narratives will try and make people assume that everybody is a swastika wearing or tattooed thug, jack boots, green bomber jacket, braces, they must all be wearing wigs and have all really got shaved heads underneath. I mean, this is not American History X we're talking about here. You know, this is a few people who have these tattoos and who have these beliefs. The extreme side of their beliefs. But the mainstream narrative is that anybody who wants to stick up for their country, who wants to protest, rally, march, whatever it might be, against things that happen to white British people is a Nazi thug. And that's a very dangerous situation for us all to be in.
You know, looking at the screens at the moment,
Yeah.
it's very frightening.
Yeah.
For the
I'm
communities that
frightened.
you're talking
I'm
about.
scared to go out. I've got
Yeah.
family and friends who are thinking about how they should travel, how they shouldn't go out. People who aren't going to the mosque to pray.
Scared to go out. People who aren't going to mosque to pray. No, that's because they're going to mosque to get their weapons cache and then to hit the streets with it. As you're now going to hear in this particular video, you're going to have a police constable telling a huge group of people, if you have any weapons on you, please put them back in the mosque.
This mosque is a small group. If there's any weapons or anything like that, what I would do is discard them in the mosque. Leave them here. So you don't give anybody any reason or have any interaction with the police, negative interaction. That's my belief. So if there's any weapons, get rid of them. You're not going to arrest anybody. I've been told that you
Not if you've got weapons on you, you're going to be fucking nicked for carrying a weapon, an offensive weapon or whatever you might be carrying. Because it could be any number of things. No. This is a police constable basically taking the knee to a baying group of Islamists with weapons. Can you imagine this happening to any of the white people who have been protesting? I'm not talking about rioting. I'm talking about protesting at the moment. It wouldn't happen. They would be assaulted by the police, arrested, and, well, seeing as they're opening the courts 24 hours a day for the foreseeable future, locked up quicker than you can fucking say Nazi.
Can I say here, in Hartlepool, the police say a number of the people who were involved in the demonstrations were peaceful, they were local, they were not far right, they were not agitators, they were not actors, but they feel a sense that they've been overlooked, that they feel almost strangers in their community. And we have to acknowledge that, and we shouldn't attack people for feeling like that.
Now, if you remember my live stream from the riot/protest in Liverpool, County Road on the 3rd of this month, you might remember I was talking to somebody, and at one point he said, this is not about people from out of the area. None of these people are from out of the area. These are Liverpudlians who have had enough. There is nobody there, because I turned around and made a joke. I said, apart from me. And he said, yeah, but you've lived here for 20 years. I mentioned that to him previously. These people are saying, or he just said, that it's important to know that some of these people don't feel heard. They shouldn't be attacked for, wanting to be heard. I'm not suggesting for a minute that setting fire to libraries, shops, especially when there are fucking children upstairs, as you may have seen in my live stream video, smashing things up, that is not the way. I said that all the way throughout that live stream. But people need to be heard. If people don't feel like they're being heard, this will happen. But the people in Liverpool are being obviously branded as far-right thugs, a menace to society, all the rest of that, Nazi, Islamophobic and all the rest of it. He's just said from his own mouth that a lot of people are from the communities that they're concerned about and they feel that they haven't had a voice. I don't remember hearing maybe a few Polish or something like that accents in Liverpool the other night, but everybody I heard was a Scouser. again, I'm not for a moment trying to condone the behaviour that they displayed. However, it is the people from that area, and yet they are being called thugs, Nazis, Islamophobics, you know, racists. Granted, there's been some misinformation online. I fell for some misinformation, okay? Myself, I've put a tweet out on Twitter. I don't believe in deleting things. I don't believe in deleting comments. If I've said or videos, if I've said something and I'm wrong, I'll rectify that later. I put a tweet out on X. I put an X out on X saying that the guy that turned up at the Southport vigil with a knife looked to me like he was a non-native. I've had a discussion with somebody whose politics are completely different to mine. I actually had a decent conversation with them. And they said, well, look, I've heard information that the guy was white and he just had a tan. Now, to be fair, I got asked if I was a Muslim at the riot. I've got a tan, you know. I don't think I look Muslim, but I do have brown hair. Well, apart from the grey bits, dark eyes. So, and now dark skin. So I do potentially look maybe not the typical pasty, milky white British person. But my point is, I potentially made a mistake in assuming from the blurry picture of the guy that was being arrested that he was of a foreign descent, shall we say. There have been posts, there have been things put out online that this wasn't the case. Now, I've not seen 100% evidence that it isn't yet. Some of you might, some of you may not, but I've not seen enough for me to say, absolutely, I was 100% wrong. But it is now conceivable that I was wrong about that. And I think that's the same for many other people. But that doesn't make me pushing lies, okay? Mainstream media is saying that there are people that are pushing lies. That was initially what was going around. It's taken me a little bit of time to get to a point where, although I've not seen enough evidence to say that it definitely wasn't a non-native or non-native heritage, there is enough information out there that I've seen for me to say I could potentially be wrong. And I put that out, you know, on X, because I think that's the right thing to do. It's not about bashing people for what they are. This is about bashing people for what they're doing and why they're doing it. A lot of people have got the wrong end of the stick over different things, but I think my point here, in fact, I'm not entirely sure what my point is here, but I'm just trying to say that a lot of people are angry at situations, and when you're angry and emotions are running high, it's difficult to compartmentalise all of the information that you're getting. Some people have biases that make them think a certain way. Some people won't ever retract what they've said or apologise for what they've said. I'm not one of those people. I will apologise if I'm wrong, and many of you have seen that. But I think it's important to understand that in a situation where children have been sadly taken far too early, emotions are going to be going through the bastard roof. And people haven't got time. It's not an excuse, by the way, but people haven't got time to sift through the mountains of information that's out there, trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong and what's true and what's false. People do, you know, on all spectrums here, not just talking about the so-called far right or you know, white British people who are pretty much all far right apparently these days. I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about everybody across every spectrum. People will be angry. People will make mistakes. People will jump on things that justify their anger. It's sad. But again, this video isn't about that. This video is about the rhetoric that some people in all of mainstream media are putting out, really. This is about the rhetoric of MPs. This is about the rhetoric of a Muslim MP. And her convoluted, twisted view on what's going on and what's been going on. Again, this isn't the normal type of video that I would do, so maybe you've got bored of me already and clicked off. If you have, then I understand, because, you know, this isn't my forte, shall we say. But I'm sure some of you are watching till the end, and I thank you for that. This isn't the normal type of thing that I'm going to do on the channel. This is simply because I have time today to do that. I saw that video. It pissed me off what she was saying. Now, they, as GM Good Morning Britain, they should have, I think that was Good Morning Britain anyway, what they should have done is they should have had her on, and they should have had an MP with an opposing view. Not just the host's view against her, but another MP with an opposing view to Zarah Sultana. But they didn't, and I think that's very naughty of them, to be honest. In fact, they may even have broken broadcasting rules, I don't know. But I didn't like what she was saying, and I wanted to prove a point by showing that this is not all about white people being racist. There are groups of Muslims out there, and I know some people are going to say that's in response to the white racists, and it's not. It's not. It's not. This has just pushed it a bit further on. This is going to happen. That was going to happen anyway. These groups, this baying mob of people with weapons who have been told to put them back inside the mosque. The videos of them standing outside hotels with machetes. A Sky News report, I believe, where the woman is reporting, and behind her several tanned people walking past with weapons in their hands. And she turns around and says, oh, well, let's move away from here, without even acknowledging that these people have got weapons in their hands. This is just pushed what was inevitably going to happen forward to now. And this isn't the fault of white British people, and it's not really the fault of the immigrants that are coming here, Muslim or not, because let's face it, if you was going to get a better life somewhere else and not have to pay for it, pretty sure you would. Most of us would take advantage of that. So it's not really the fault of the individual. This is the fault of the government. This is their policies, what they have made people think of each other, the whole divide and conquer malarkey that's been going on for decades now. And it's now coming to a head, and I'd like to think things are going to calm down, but I've got a very worrying feeling in the pit of my stomach that things are not going to calm down, and lots of people are going to start getting hurt. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to leave you to go and watch another video, but if you have watched till the end, you have my humble thanks. Again, as this isn't the type of video that I would normally do, so there we go. Don't expect too many of these.